So an agent's is going to negotiate your credit, your participation, which isn't, it's back-end participation, like, sort of if you sell it internationally, but also your participation on set. Like, are you going to be a producer that's a line item in the budget that's actually working on the show? Or are you some guy that they send a check to? And obviously your money. So when you get credits, a kind of thing that an agent might give you a heads up about is, yeah, they're going to give you a created by credit, and you're going to watch the first episode, and the owner's cousin's going to be on there, and her nephew, and the guy down the street that she owes a favor to. An agent might say, hey, why don't you ask for exclusive created by credit? They just are good at those kinds of things because they do this every day. They also, like I said, can address your piece of the ownership that we're going to talk about in a second. In terms of finding an agent, I think the tact I used initially was to go to the agent that represents the production company I like. So it's a really complicated and boring explanation that I'm not going to do here. But basically, if an agent represents the producer and the production company, they get this like extra bonus from the network called a package fee. And they really like those package fees. So it gives you an edge to go to this company and say, hey, it's like going to a real estate agent that is selling the house so they're going to get double commission. That's the analogy. So I approached the agents of the companies that I wanted to pitch to. And they like that. So here's how the money works, and this is what I didn't understand. Someone finally enlightened me, and I was sort of surprised, because you think you create a show and sell it, and it's on TV, and you're going to make a bunch of money, right? So the way this deal works, and this is sort of the rule book, this is the guideline, it's some version of this everywhere, is that they take 90% of the budget. A Patty Pie Shop is $100,000 an episode. And they take 90% of the budget, and that's used for production. Camera guys, editing, props, all that stuff. 10% is for producer's fees. So this production company we signed with, they get that sort of 10%. What you're negotiating for when you sign a deal with a production company is a percentage of that percentage. So you created the show, you brought it to them, you shot the sizzle, that's what you're pitching. We're 50-50 partners, right? No. You're going to be happy if you get 20% of the 10%, which is 2%. This is pretty standard. This is not getting screwed over. But you got an agent. So the agent's really good at negotiating and got you 3% minus commission. So this isn't really the money that you're envisioning when you're thinking, I just created and sold a show, and I'm the executive producer. So let's say the show sells and goes into production. We're getting that $2,000 per episode fee. Let's say they were really impressed with our producing skills, and they're going to put us as an actual producer in the budget, which is not a guarantee. And so we're going to get a weekly salary out of the production budget. They order 6 episodes. You get 12 grand for the episode fee. You get 48 grand because it took 16 weeks. You made $60,000. That's pretty good, except that it probably took you most of a year to get there. You could do other jobs while you're pitching and stuff, but it's not sort of, earth-shattering money. Where you say, maybe 100 grand is too low because this went to TLC and their shows are 300 grand. So let's triple that. Your producer fee is going to go up, that ownership piece. Your salary isn't really going to go up that much because that range, it doesn't triple. Eventually if you're a really successful producer, that you'll get big deals and stuff. But as your, first time deal, if they gave you that salary, it's not going to triple because you went to TLC. It's going to be about the same. You've now made $84,000. If they didn't give you the producer credit, the salaried position, you made $36,000 for getting a show, 6 episodes of a show on a pretty good sized cable network. Again, this isn't earth-shattering money. So you sign this deal for your 2%, and the good news, the bad news is that you don't own your show anymore because you've signed over a majority stake to another company. And technically, from this point on, they can tell you to sort of take a hike. And hopefully you did your research and didn't find a company like that, but you are not a majority stakeholder in this project. You're sort of a nuisance to be tolerated, or a partner if they like you. And they're, I loved the production company I signed with. I was thrilled. So, but they own my show for a while. The good news is that now you have this team of people that all are in the same boat and have the same vested interest. So if the budgets go up, if you get better deals, these three entities all make money. They all want to sell the show. They all want it to be bigger budget. So everyone here makes money together. And that's the good news, is you sort of have this team going. It doesn't really affect Patty that much because her salary is not going to change. Her salary is not as contingent on the budget. She's still going to get that sort of measly fee. She's going to have to break her contract in the second season, like Jersey Shore, and renegotiate. And that's why those people do it, is because they get signed for like pennies. And then the show's a huge hit, and that's why they break their contracts, is because they're in these terrible deals. So it gets back to the selling part, and that's really sort of where the magic comes in. What I ran into now in this marketplace was, the shows that are popular right now. People like Jersey Shore, people like the housewives that throw things at each other. And when you go into a network, I bet for 20 years they're like, well, what's the stakes? What's the stakes of the show? Well, now the stakes, when they're referring to, is like, do they have a Jersey accent and are they yelling? And I don't say that in a bitter way. That's just the marketplace now. It's everyone's trying to compete in that space. They want to make a lot of noise, and they're fighting for audiences. And so I think, the feedback I got on my project, despite all the early positive feedback from the production companies, that sort of environment of like people bidding over it, and the agents getting all excited, and really positive feedback from the networks, it just was sort of tame for this marketplace. And that's a decision I made last July. So my fate was sealed. The rest was just an exercise in learning about how to sell or pitch a reality show. So having said that and seen the money, I just want you guys to contemplate developing these projects in other medium. If Patty's making $1,000 per episode or $2,000 per episode, if you had a popular podcast, you could start to get sponsorship that's in that realm, if it was really popular. Not only that, if you took that podcast and tried to sell it, you're in a much different position than selling an sort of untested idea. So I would say that if you have a Patty that you are thinking about, I would really contemplate the option of developing it outside of TV first. And part of what you can factor into that is now you've seen the money. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it's not this sort of earth-shattering thing, and it might be worth testing the waters out online or in some other way that allows you to sort of get more equity in this talent that you're going to sign. So that's it.